Yeah.
Oh, well. So we're recording, so that list gets going. So, Henry, how do you feel and what do you want to get out of today?
No, I'm feeling pretty good, eh? It's always good watching other people beat the South Africans. Especially when it's the Australian schoolboys. I mean, it can't get better than that. Looking forward to connecting with everyone and seeing where our core leads are growing from there. It all, everything happens for a reason, and we're seeing it happening. So it's all good. Raffers, how you feeling? And what do you expect to get out of today's call today, mate?
Thank you, Henry. So I'm glad you enjoy seeing South Africa getting their ass kicked. So it is. Anyway, happy to be here. And what I expect again is to carry on exploring Paki's thinking and application. Thank you. Catalina, how do you feel and what do you expect to get out today?
Hi, Rafa. Thank you. Thank you for that. Hello, everyone. No, I feel good. We just was playing with the jigsaw puzzle that I'm nearly to complete, and I was engrossed in my eyes a little bit. I don't know, focus on something else. I'm always happy to be here, and I always look forward to the great conversation and rich environment and something else to learn in the middle, in the midst of beautiful people. So bring it on. Pete, how do you feel when you want to get out of today?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. Didn't get a lot of sleep last night, but went back to bed later and caught up on some of that. And I'm just looking forward to the, I was going to say the ongoing conversation, but given Henry's sparring, I don't know that conversation, it might be the ongoing stirring, might be a better word, stirring the pot. Anyway, looking forward to it. Lisa, how do you feel and what are you expecting to get out of today?
Thank you, Peter. I'm feeling very good here. It's a nice Sunday, good day to be above ground. I'm just looking forward to hearing everybody's contribution and having us move forward a half a step, as long as it takes. It's all good. Susan, how do you feel and what would you like to get out of today?
I feel happy to be with you. Sorry, I'm driving home right now. Looking forward to the connection and expanded perspective. I saw Nelson flicker across my screen. Nelson, how do you feel and what would you like to get out of today?
Thank you, Susan. I'm feeling very well and I'm happy. Thank you for this call. And my expect today is to learn more about the subconscious and other words, or vocabulary's words. Thank you. That I feel and that I might expect. Philemon, what do you feel and what do you expect today?
I'm feeling great. I've spent the whole week being spring. I've got to repot over 90 plants in this office. So for the whole week, I've been pretty much slowly doing it. And I love it every year. And they grow and I watch them and I play with the root systems and all that kind of stuff. What I'm expecting to get out of today is the stuff that gets me to do that stuff. I don't know if that makes sense, but I could easily pay someone $200 to come and do that, but I'd rather spend 20 hours doing it because it gives the ability and the freedom to think about a lot of the stuff that we talk about here, connection, life, principles, all that kind of stuff, how it all works in an environment. So that's what I'm looking to get out of today, just more content to apply to my environments. And how do you feel and what would you like to get out of today?
Yeah, thank you very much, Philemon. Good morning, everybody. Oh, no, sorry, good evening, good afternoon, yes. Right, I'm feeling very thankful because life is coming back in KL, in Malaysia. Yeah, things are all opening up, and we are now able to go out to the shops. So that is very big for us, because the economy was so tightened up that we couldn't even breathe. Yeah. And what I'm looking forward to today is, the more we meet up, the more it comes together, for the way we look at the world, and that the direction we are taking our education towards. Yeah, because I'm pretty single-minded where the education is concerned, in the sense that it is about the kids, it is about the world, it is about making sense of what it should be, for the kids, not now, but for, like, say, 20 over years into the future. Yeah, thank you very much. And Manu, how do you feel, and what do you expect out of today?
I actually feel good because, I mean, yesterday it was just another thing, another experience. We prepare for the big opportunity. Yesterday, just a game, just a training. So, that's fine. I mean, Henry can be very happy. I share his happiness, but we will be there, when it counts. So, and that's what we do, is that we learn to create viable, sustainable, repeatable, and regenerative systems to solve problems when it's needed locally. So Henry, hopefully, New Zealand is going to organize the World Cup, and we come there and then we take it and we bring it to South Africa. That's all.
Next week, mate. Game on next week.
So that's the way I feel. And as usual, I really expect to learn more about how to create systems that allow me to solve local problems. I'm very happy about that. So who's next? Anna, how do you feel? What do you expect?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Sorry, I'm a bit late. Okay, I'm very happy today, as usual, every Sunday. Looking forward to all this, meeting you guys. I'm still learning, and I've copied quite a lot of notes here. I hope to take it with me to Penang one day when the CLS school is open. Yep, there's still continue learning. Okay, CJ, how do you feel, and what to expect to take away today?
Thank you, Anna. Good day, everyone. So I'm feeling blessed today. So it's a Sunday. I decided to relax, but I look at my calendar and say, okay, relax while I do work. Gonna meet up some parents after this. So how I'm feeling is I'm feeling blessed this week with so many great things happening. And what I'm looking forward to is, as I read through the notes yesterday and today, I just gleamed through again, this word pop in my mind, which is consciousness and unconsciousness. I'm looking forward to understand that more. Who else haven't gone yet?
John Butler.
Butler, so how are you feeling, and what do you want to get out of today's session?
CJ, I'm great and feeling grateful. Grateful to be here. Grateful to be alive and living in Perth, which is one of the best places in the world. It's another lovely day here. And I've got the excitement of my granddaughter's volleyball grand final to look forward to. So I'll be leaving you all early today to go to that. So just keen to learn a little bit more, to leave this call a little bit more aware, a little bit better informed, and hopefully understanding Bucky just a little bit better. So Kelly, is there anybody else who hasn't?
Yeah, Stanley, Julian, or Joseph.
Okay, so Stanley, how do you feel, and what do you hope?
I always leave Lisa out because I know I'll get to her eventually.
Oh, but Lisa's gone.
Yeah, I thought she had too, but anyway, I always ask her because
Sorry, haven't you gone, Lisa?
Yes, yes.
I thought so. You're confusing me, Kelly. Sorry, Stanley.
No, it wasn't me, it's Manu.
Stanley, how do you feel, and what do you hope to take out of today?
Hi, John. Thank you. Good day, everyone. I'm feeling great. I'm happy to be here. I don't have anything specific that I'm looking forward to. I guess, our session here today, and I'm looking forward to see what everyone has to say today. Thank you. And the next person is, sorry, I missed out.
Julian.
Julian. Yes, Julian, how do you feel and what do you expect to get from today?
Okay, thank you, Stanley. Hello, everyone. So I'm feeling a little bit different today. I think a little bit tired on one side, and also very thankful about the different things that have happened this week. But I'm expecting to find a way to leave aside all of that things, and let's focus on what can we get on to discuss today on really interesting topics. So I think I don't know if anyone is left. I think
Joseph.
Kelly. Joseph. Okay, Joseph. How do you feel today, and what do you expect from today?
I'm feeling pretty good. A little bit flustered because I misplaced my Buckminster Fuller copybook, but I'll find that at some point. So I was a little bit flustered. I can't refer back to it. But I'm feeling pretty good, and I'm looking forward to just learning more about the subconscious. So, Kelly, how do you feel? And what do you expect to get out of today? And I hope your grandson had a great birthday.
Sebi had a fantastic birthday. He's got 4 superhero suits and didn't know which one to wear, so we wore them all at once. I'm feeling particularly good because it wasn't New Zealand that beat the world champions, it was Australia. So it was a good day, and considering that New Zealand knocks the living daylights out of Australia, it was a pretty good day for us, Manu. And then on the other side of me, I am just totally perplexed over the week. And it's been one of my pet peeves in Australia that they would buy submarines. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, so they're going to buy subs from France. They're going to spend $60 billion. And what a fantastic thing when they decided, no, we're not going to buy these subs. We're going to put that away. And then I'm thinking, okay, well, we don't really need the subs, but it's even better. The United States needed another partner to partner with for the stuff that it does around the world. So we're lucky enough to be in line to get nuclear subs from the USA, probably at twice the price. You know, so it's like, it's only a small thing. Our budget's about 2% of our GDP goes to defense. And the good news is for Australia, it's going to go to 4%. And we're going to have nuclear subs. I'm just in this world today, it totally gets me that we'd even consider money for that when we've got everything else that has to be done. You know, when we've got people that aren't eating, and I'm talking about Australia, you know, the most affluent country that I've been to and live, it is affluent. Yet we've got people, you know, we're so affluent, we can afford $90 billion for subs. That, what are they going to do for us? What's that?
It'll be more now. Bucky said, invest in living, not killing.
Yeah, but it's just one of those things. Anyway, I'm perplexed about it, to think that we could rip up one agreement only to get into a worse agreement. It just makes no sense to me at all. But anyway, that's me. What do I expect to get out of today? I really do think that we're now starting to track on an artifact of design, because we started this with his design principles, and we're studying the words that he says are essential to understand design. And last week I had Philemon and a lot of the people that I've worked with in a group, in a training group. And they were talking, well, could you give me a list of the generalized principles? And I'm thinking, you know, really, I've thought about it lots of times, and I think the only way I can say about a generalized principle or to understand them is look at yourself. That's what my whole gig is. Look at your own design and the generalized principles appear. Because if there's a greater universe and we are a universe, then just about everything we do is based on generalized principles. And so when you start to think about that, then can we actually look at design? And the words that Fuller chose for us this week were extremely hard for me to find in any of his writings. So I had to go back to Critical Path. It wasn't in any of his science writings. It was in his history writings that we actually get these words. And I took all the words from Critical Path. And it's interesting to me because Critical Path is his history book. So it goes through the history of the way things happen and how they grow and so on. So it amazed me that I could go to his Everything I Know, Synergetics. I could go to a lot of the books that I have, and I couldn't find anything on these 4 words. The only place I found something on these 4 words were his history books, which intrigued me a little bit. But it also says where we are on this call, because really what we're talking about is our design and how it's deployed with these 4 words. So Joseph, you going to read for me today?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me find it. And oh no, that's not the one I want. Oh my gosh. That's the one I want there. And all the little pictures that you see are, can everyone see it now?
Yep.
I once thought I was going to be clever and write a book. And then I realized I'm not that clever, because I figured every time I wanted to write something, I could find it somewhere else. But what I did do is I created about 400 graphics of my thoughts and pictures, because my formula is words, numbers, and symbols. So I've got all of these pictures that I created for a book that I don't use, but I think they're quite relevant. And so when you look at this one here, and the thing that the reason why I do it is I don't like people giving me the nonsense, oh, that's copyrighted and you can't use it and you're stealing it and all the rest. I say, no, you know, I'm part of the creation of it, and it's a lot of the concepts come from my mind. So I use it and I don't copyright and I don't do any stuff like that. I just say, here's what's in my mind. So for what it's worth. Okay, so you can see this little guy, I came to my mind that the power of an individual can be related in this finger. This finger can do more than just about any other beingness on the planet. Does everyone know why that finger can do that?
Points.
Points, yeah. Why can it do it? It's the world we're in today. It can push, it can pull. When you think about it, that train that's going, it's someone pushing a button or pulling something that actually gets it. And when we get out there, and it's like, I thought about this, and I think on an airplane, and I look, and we're zooming past birds, and I'm thinking, I'm just going to sit here and relax while you guys work overtime, because I don't have to do anything. This is what technology is doing for us. And when I started to understand that, I realized this whole thing of mind and the power of mind. So if you look at this, and let's get started, Joe.
What is subconscious? Sailors watch for every clue nature may give to coming events. cloud formations, temperature of the water, wind directions, shiftings, etc. To survive, navigators must anticipate comprehensively. The sailor's subconscious as well as conscious faculties interact to inform his anticipatory decisions. R. Buckminster, Critical Path, page 327.
Okay, so what's he saying to us? This is from his history book. What's he saying?
That we use information that we are often not aware that we're using, that we've picked up just through learning and observation.
Yeah, it's coming from our senses at this moment. So as we look at this, it's nature's clue coming events, cloud information. So where do we see the cloud information? I said we view our cloud information through our eyes. And it's like anybody that's ever been a farmer and you need a lot of rain, you know intuitively when the clouds are moving and the ants are moving, something's going on. And so it's like you take those clues. But today, what do farmers do?
Look at the TV.
I was about to say that. Watch the Weather Channel.
Well, you watch the Weather Channel, exactly right, because we have all of these sensorial devices beyond our body that we seemingly think are faster, more accurate, or however we see it. But in my mind, it's like I have been a broadacre farmer. I have put in 3,000 and 4,000 acres of crop. And I can tell you, the weatherman is not as good as the ants. When those ants start to move, you know there's something coming. And so when you're looking at that and you trust that, the old farmers in the area that I used to laugh like hell because I'd listen to weather reports and I'd have all my equipment ready to go and they'd say, "What do you got that out for, son?" And I'd say, "Well, because it's going to rain tonight." And they said, "Oh, how much you getting?" Right? It might rain, but how much? Is it going to soak the soil or is it going to run off? What's it going to do? So you might have all of that, but you better understand all the conditions that you're involved with. So when you're navigating, it's no different. It's navigating and tuning into what's ever there. And so when you can see it, it's almost saying it's there. And now what's happening, you know, I'm not a farmer. I'm not a farm boy. So I had to learn it on the run. So how do you learn it on the run?
Observation and analysis.
Observation and analysis. So that's exactly what went on. And it's like, I don't remember how many times that, because in the country, you're a small community. I don't know how many times I was the butt of a joke. Did you see what that dumbass did down the road? Right? Because I didn't have all the signals. I didn't understand the signals. It took me nearly 15 years to really understand when the ants moved, when the winds changed, when all of those things were part of what I was doing. It took me 15 years to understand it. Just long enough to be tired and go because they're bringing in chemicals. But when you look at it from that perspective, it's growing. So does the subconscious grow?
Yes.
Yes.
How does it grow?
Through experience.
It accumulates and then develop heuristics. It grows.
Yeah. I mean, I can tell you some of the dumbest things I ever did were farming and fighting with the elements, believing that I knew more than what was already there. And so you'd struggle like hell to go through it. But as you develop, you become more aware. And so I don't know whether anyone's ever heard Steve and myself talk about this.
Yes.
Conscious awareness. 7 plus or minus 2. Does anyone understand what that means? And Anna, you asked about this maybe 4 weeks ago when I put this picture out. Do you remember this picture? I don't know.
Is it the power? Is it the relationship between the conscious and subconscious?
It's a design. It's a design positioning, really. It's saying since the 1950s, we've understood that consciously we can hold 7 plus or minus 2 thoughts in our consciousness at the same time. Mm-hmm. But if you start to look at that and you start to think about from a design perspective, how many people have got a lot more going on than that, and things start to drop off? Have you ever experienced that? No one's experienced being overwhelmed by too many things to think about during a day?
That's my life.
I will raise my hand for sure.
You know, and it's like at that moment, it's from a design perspective, is it possible to think that we can start saying to ourselves from a conscious awareness, this is what we're able to do. And we're able to understand that because we do, in my view, have the gift of choice and the gift of decision and the gift of creation. And I think that Fuller is saying constantly, this is a thing that separates us from other beingness, is this ability to have this conscious awareness. Comments or questions? Wow.
I'm still just trying to consider other beings and whether they would have conscious. Like I think about dolphins and that. And
yeah, but in reality, that's exactly what's going on, 7 plus or minus 2. So instead of thinking of the matter of a Homo sapien, I immediately start to think about a dolphin or a whale.
Yeah.
And if I thought about the Homo sapien, and I'd say, well, this is a characteristic that it has from a design perspective. How do I apply that? And then as I apply that, then I start to think about the dolphin and the whale. But if we're going to start to think about design, we should really start at the central design. It's like I said, the generalized principles are already part of what we do. That's what we do on a daily basis. So what does the brain, according to Fuller, what does the brain do?
Stores
Stores and retrieves.
Retrieval.
Yeah, store, retrieve. What does the mind do?
Relates.
Relates and interrelates.
Relates and interrelates. What does it relate and interrelate?
experiences.
Awareness, consciousness.
It relates to things that come across whatever it's coming across, the channel, right? It's what's tuning. So at that moment, it is, if we could understand that, I mean, just think about how bloody ridiculous it is that we're all tuned in to this idea that the Americans have pulled out of Afghanistan and they spent trillions of dollars killing people, or as they would put it, saving people. What are we saving them for? And that trillions of dollars, if you want to look at the sickest, most polluted economy on the planet, just go to the USA. And it's like, it's so distorted. And so at some moment, we have to start to say to ourselves, how do we get to a moment of creating what it is that we want? And we have to understand the design functions. So if I look at this thing and someone's talking to me, and it happens at every meeting I go to, It's like we'll be talking about one thing and then someone will pipe up and say, but what about this? And what happens at the moment? What happens at the moment when you say, what about this?
The other one's lost.
Yeah, it starts a little bushfire. Is there anyone ever experienced a bushfire like that?
All the time. All the time.
All the time. It's like
all the time. When I see customers and they go, oh, what about my heating? What about this? What about that? And then I actually have to sit them down and say, look, let's just deal with one thing at a time. And rather than confusing it and get that out the way, and then we'll move. Otherwise, it's just chaos. You've got to control it.
you know, the thing that I say, put a blanket on it, smother it. And that's for a different moment in time. Right now, this is what we're talking about. If we talk about this right now, it means all the oxygen, all the air, all the energy that we require for this subject is here. But the second you take me sideways, you take me somewhere else. What's that, Philemon?
No, it was just all the oxygen. As soon as you said it, I thought I better suck a big one in. But that was, I didn't even know I was doing it until you just said, what's up? No, nothing's up. I'm just taking some oxygen.
Yeah. You know, I ran a Bucky group in Singapore, and there are 15 people in the room. And this guy comes in and his head's hanging down and the world's on my shoulder, and his shoulders were folded in and his whole body was drooped down. And what do you want to get? Oh, I just don't want what I've got right now. And I said, I'm gonna give you something for free. I'm gonna tell you to take as much of it as you want. I want you to put your shoulders back and suck that air in, brother. That's exactly what I said to him. And he looked at me and he said, you're kidding. And I said, no, I said, that's free. No one's gonna charge you for taking in the air to open out your body.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, his shoulders were back. He had actually entered the room, and it was just a pure matter of he wasn't breathing enough. How many times have we seen that? How many times have we walked into a room and we know that's what's going on?
I couldn't help but think, Kelly, when you were sharing just then about, I think the history on this is it was about 250, 300 years ago, but England used to tax Ireland for the air they breathe. So the Irish used to have very small windows. And you can go to Ireland today and there are buildings that still have very small windows. And it's kind of sad, but it's kind of an observation in how much we get distracted by whether it's propaganda or noise or just general pollution. It's like what you said about the subways at the start of the gig today, Kelly. You know, nuclear subways and cancelling the contract with submarines, cancelling the contract with an ally that served us in the First and Second World War, slapping their face to take something from America is a complete distraction for Australia. And like you said, it doubled the cost, yet we allowed it. It's like we are so distracted with the 7+1 that those who can put the thoughts there, I mean, I don't know. I'm just in a weird mood about it, I guess.
Okay, but if you look at that from a pure design point of view, and you understand our own design, and you start to say to yourself, does preconditioning play very much in the overall way we think, feel, and act?
Yes.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the part that we forget, is there's this preconditioning. Why in the hell do we need submarines? Right? And it's like we're preconditioned to the idea that someone's going to steal something from us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and the belief is, the absolute belief is, oh, China, we got to worry about China. I don't know whether people really follow very much around the economics of China. But in this country, China has created the boom through iron ore. Iron ore 3 months ago was $200 or some odd a ton. It's less than 100 now. Why does China need a submarine? I mean, they can do it in plain view.
Right.
Because what's going to end up happening is China's going to say, we're not going to buy your iron ore. We stop buying your wine. We stop trading with you. Why do you need a military? They'll just choke us to death through understanding design. And what I'm saying is we've been preconditioned to this idea that we've got to protect something. What is it that we're protecting? And is it different today than it was 200 years ago? You know, when I look at it, I'm just saying this is a design issue that we need to understand. And it's probably want to understand that if we look and understand, first of all, what's being stored. I've said it once, I've said it 100 times on any call I've ever made. Who's the first person you're speaking to?
Yourself.
Yourself. And the fact that you're speaking to yourself, everything you say to yourself is what's starting off in the preconditioning. And so I think it's reasonable for us to say that there's a precondition that goes on with the program set in whatever our subconscious is or conscious is. And I think that that's why it's so important. Shall we keep moving, Joe, or will I keep pontificating?
We'll keep moving.
Good on you, mate.
In warmer and tropical climes where vitamin D from the sun is adequate or excessive, human subconsciously functioning organisms employing their chemical process options develop sunlight filters in the skin consisting of darker and darker pigments, which prevent excess absorption of radiation and avoid the overdose of vitamin D.
So what's it saying about our design?
It adapts.
It adapts.
And
Yeah.
that's why, for example, the isolation that we've been put under to be stay inside, people with higher pigmentation in the skin suffer longer because to have the same intake of vitamin D with someone with lighter skin, the ones that we have higher pigmentation, we require higher amount of time under the sun because of that.
So how does this apply to COVID?
That's what I'm saying. So that's what they were saying. Like, for example, I just heard this from a very well-known doctor in the United States called Zach Bush, and he said that for people like Native American, Hispanic American, African American, the one that we have, I include myself there, more pigmentations, we needed more time. So spending so much time indoors, you know, someone with a light skin like Peter, he could have had his intake of vitamin D in 15, 30 minutes. Someone like me or someone like Manu would probably need, I don't know, 45 minutes, an hour, 2 hours. How is that it actually staying all the time indoors will help to actually have our vitamin intake to support our well-being.
But that's assuming that the body can take care of COVID on its own. You see, you're saying this is our remedy.
It's one of the factors that could actually help to prevent, to have the equipment to actually help to deal with a severe influence like COVID is.
What you're talking about is the consequence of what they're doing to protect you from COVID. My thing is, will the body protect itself?
It would.
Yes.
It always has.
Yeah.
So in the Israeli literature, folks with natural immunity are 6 to 13 times less likely to get ill from the Delta variant than people who have been, quote, And I say this in preconditioning, fully vaccinated, end quote.
I would like to attract your attention to this. Adaptative. When you say adaptative, you are adapting to something. And adaptative, you're adapting to what you call the environment. In other words, the local conditions. So you are saying that the program is adjusting itself to be able to function towards its goal in narrow conditions. And that's what is important to me with regard to design. That's why I always say I want to solve local problems by designing using generalized principles to be able to function in a way that is congruent to the general principles.
So at that moment, Manu, if we start looking at that and saying that it is a design function of our beingness to evolve, evolve meaning that we'll be able to deal with the COVID going through our beingness.
Mm-hmm.
So at that moment, could we say evolving is a generalized principle?
Yes. I mean, we
there you go, Philemon, write that one down.
Evolving is a generalized principle. And coming back to vitamin D, let me just draw attention to. Today, the highest proportion of people with deficiency in vitamin D, especially D3, are people of color. The highest proportion of people with deficiency. And why is it that? Because there have been change of conditions. And people of color, they stay more, say, indoors. Right?
Manu, I hate to shatter your bubble, but we're all of color.
Okay, no, fine.
You know, it's like when we look at that, that's how we differentiate. And we say, oh, well, that guy's black, but it's an environmental conditioning, an evolving environment condition.
Okay.
Would you say?
Yes, I agree with you.
So at that moment, let's not exclude from the design, because fundamentally we have this design. We live in different environments and we evolve to that environment.
Yes.
That's why I'm saying evolving is possibly a generalized principle.
It is.
Because we adapt at that moment. Comments or questions?
One of the things that is incredibly misquoted is Darwin's quote that it's always quoted as the strongest of the species will survive. He did not say that. He actually said the ones who will survive are those who adapt, the most adaptable. That's his actual quote. It got kind of changed. And the other thing just on
but isn't that also a preconditioning? When you change that, you're starting to condition people to believe certain things. Like what conditioning is there's not enough.
Absolutely, it's conditioning. And worldwide at the moment, there's conditioning 24/7 for people to be fearful. And Susan can comment on this because she probably knows it better than I do. But I know that there are hundreds of studies over the last 60 years proving how harmful to people's health is being in a state of anxiety and fear. And so a world health crisis is predicated on fear created by those supposedly trying to protect people from it whilst they use political overreach to create tyranny. And
is that fear or ignorance?
Say that again, sorry, Kelly?
Is that fear or ignorance?
I think it's fear. It's fear predicated on ignorance.
When you look at it though, when you see a physical bruise, you can actually say there's a bruise. But when you talk about anxiety, it's very hard to see. It's a metaphysical condition. Isn't that why it's so important to start to understand the metaphysical condition?
Absolutely.
Like, so for you,
the
I
metaphysical
agree
that
with
can
what
be
you're
seen with depression. In Australia at the moment, we have record numbers of depression and suicide, and that's being pushed under the carpet so that the propaganda conditioning of fear can be continued down our throats for an agenda.
Okay, let's be pragmatic about it. At that moment, we can say, okay, this is what's going on. And the idea that we will evolve without the preconditioning, we'll start to understand it. So the root cause of the problem, what is the root cause of the problem?
The programming.
No, ignorance. It's not, this is ignorance. Because, and that's where I wanted to come in here. Conditioning is happening all the time, whether you want it or not. Conditioning and evolution is a duality. Because unfortunately, I mean, when you say repetition, it's conditioning. So it happens all the time. The question is, and I come to what Kelly said, the gift of choice. So can I choose? Do I choose?
Am I allowed to choose?
And what do I choose? Yes. So it comes, you know, the foundation of it is non-ignorant about that. Be non-ignorant of it.
So now if we're looking at that, what is critical mass playing the overall of it?
Exactly.
Does everyone understand what the point being made about critical mass?
Yes. Yep. Well, let me get in here. You know, when you are conditioned, when conditioning is happening, there's accumulation of things, patterns start forming, and they form to a point where, in actual fact, there is a aha.
So let me give you an example. This country had a lot of trouble with buying subs from France because France is not considered a superpower. And so sending $60 billion and wasting our taxpayers' money is one thing. But now all of a sudden, we got a superpower. And if we spend $90 billion, it'll probably be worth it. That's critical mass conditioning because the Americans are the best at military superpower. So we've traded in the French and our agreements to become with something bigger. It's an easier sell in a conditioning point of view. Does everyone understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's just like price theory in a way, like how products are priced, essentially to make us think that something is better than another when it's really just the same thing.
Yep.
Better value.
Better value.
Yeah, better value. Or
I don't know how you get a better
not
value.
even better value, but more value in the eyes of society versus the eyes of the eyes of the customer themselves.
Bang for bucks.
And is it physical or metaphysical at that moment?
Metaphysical.
Metaphysical. So are we in the world of the physical or the metaphysical?
Oh, geez, we're in the world of the metaphysical.
Primacy of metaphysical, always on the physical.
See, we're talking about the vitamin D here. That's a physical sense. But what's going on is not physical so much anymore. It's all metaphysical, the conditioning and what's going on. Yeah. The thing about getting past COVID, it could possibly be there'll be a lot of deaths.
Yep.
But are the deaths part of evolution?
Is it also part of de-evolution? Because the programming that we have is not programming that supports evolution. It's conditioning, it's the dumbing down of society to a very low level that people are ignorant that they can accept BS. And so there's a duality with evolution and de-evolution.
So what's the BS, Peter?
So I could go on for hours about the amount of lies that have been told around COVID and the amount of suppression of hundreds of doctors and scientists who've got questions who aren't allowed to say the questions or aren't allowed to present evidence other than what the salesman for the pharmaceutical company.
What's the BS?
That's the BS.
No, the BS is you'll live forever. It's just not true.
It's not true. We're going to die.
Yeah, and so
Really?
you got to be pragmatic about it and say to yourself, yeah, lots of people lie, but you know, I've had thousands of people sing out, everybody tells lies but me.
Mhm.
Right? And so when you start to realize it, you start to say, if I go to the root cause of whatever's going on, I might solve the problem. So every time, it's like all the things you're talking about right now, they're little bushfires that are sucking oxygen. And when they suck the oxygen, what happens?
Okay,
Go ahead, Manu.
let's take it this way. And I want to kind of have that exchange, you know, mostly directed. Peter, if there are 7 billion Homo sapiens in the world, case A, 7 billion, and let's boil the problem to the vaccine. Case A, 7 billion say we're not taking the vaccine. Case B, 7 billion say we're taking the vaccine. Then what? I would suggest that I would prefer 3.5 billion, and this is just saying we take it. 3.5 billion say we not take it, and they're allowed to leave, and then we learn something.
Yeah, the actual issue is not the taking it or not taking it. The actual issue is that there's been, so like they pretend, well, they're saying, oh, you're allowed to take it, but if you're not taking it, but if you don't take it, well, you can't come to work. You can't get any benefits. So how's actually choice when, you know, my quality of life or my natural rights of mobilization and anything else are actually restricted? You know, there's nothing wrong with choice. I'm absolutely correct. I agree with you, Manu. The problem is not you just choose to get jabbed or not. It's up to you. That's why we have choice. The actual situation here is that how is it be that I say you have choice, but if you choose that, these are the consequences.
Well, that's another problem.
We are in charge. You can travel, you can go, you can't even go into different state borders. You can't actually eat inside. In Victoria, the premier said, oh, the trade is, if you're not vaccinated, you can't have lunch indoors.
Well, you can't have your job to start with.
What kind of bullshit is that? So, you know, what did they do?
But that's
outside.
Catalina, that's our design.
Yes, but
our design is to have choice. What you're talking about is having
manipulating
choice.
the choice.
And so the moment you have choice, like Manu's saying, that's why critical mass is so important. When you've got critical mass saying we're all going to head this way, why the hell do you think it is that they're striving so hard to get people vaccinated?
You mean other than corruption?
Well, you can say whatever you want, but what they're looking for is critical mass.
Yes, they are, but
you put the word corruption on it. That's another bushfire.
Yeah, they're trying to create critical mass with the pretend that they're gonna open up whatever, you know, like we want to get 80% of the people jobs so we can open the country, or we can travel interstate at least, right? So everyone else, we choose to actually decide to see how our natural bodies respond to not get exposed to those pharmaceutical created substances, we actually don't have the choice to test how it actually happened if we actually decide to go and see if the families are on the other side of the world. We don't have the choice. It got restricted. So where's the actual choice? It's subjugated.
Even if you did take the double vax state borders, we have that fearless leader in Western Australia who last week turned around and then reaffirmed it the next day. We don't care if you're double jabbed and you're from Sydney, you will not be coming into Western Australia for Christmas with you. Christmas is still a few months away and he's made the call. We don't care if you're double jabbed. You are not coming from one state in Australia to his state. So then all of a sudden, why are we getting jabbed? That's the question I start asking, because they're not even working together on top of this. They're not even colluding and saying, okay, guys, let's hold it here and we'll get as many as we can. Even they're contradicting each other.
So once again, it's bushfires, giving oxygen to something rather than being pragmatic. And it's like how do we go about getting this dealt with? We have to actually go with the design, and I think that's what Fuller's been saying for years and years and years. Look at the evidence, be pragmatic, and let's study this from a scientific point of view. And when we start to do that, what will our outcomes be? I mean, the jab is ridiculous, but to think that we're going to create machines that are going to actually kill people without a virus, you just think about how ridiculous we've been with that greater thought that we'll kill people rather than evolve people. Anyway, Joe, let's keep going. I can hear we're on the subject of the week, which is needles or no needles.
What I proposed was based on my observation that world people had become extraordinarily confident in the fundamental reliability of the computer and its electronically controlled processes. I know that a great many people will contradict me, but I have predicted my conviction of society's subconsciously established confidence in the computer's reliability upon vital, therefore undeniable, behavior facts.
Okay, when did he write this?
60s?
Probably 70s and 80s. But even so, at that moment, we're just entering the world of computers. What's he saying about the computer?
The data will make the decisions.
Yeah, it's not emotional.
One of the data about the whole COVID thing is that if you don't do anything, you let it spread, it will kill people. It's happened in the past with the plagues, killed 40% of Europe. So it's just that society today doesn't want that. So they're looking at options on how they can prevent that.
It happens regardless. It's the cycle of life, unfortunately,
Yes.
how attached we are with other people because we love it.
Yeah, but people don't want that.
We have been talking about cycles here, and we seem to be kind of heading towards, or we seem to be deciding that we are going to determine what the cycle is.
We're not.
No, we can't determine what the cycle is, so we should allow it to follow its process.
But the world doesn't want that.
We should do
in the same way financial crises. That they don't let it happen. They don't let the bubble burst.
Well, it's not that they don't let it burst, they just push it down the line a bit further.
Yeah.
Become bigger, but it will
You can't
burst.
control it forever.
Well, the design is that it's going to burst, right? So pushing it down the line. And what I argue is that, you know, the argument today about vaccine, no vaccine, is alike that one. Let the things happen.
Mm-hmm.
Let diversities of things happen. There will be a critical mass of something at some point. So if I want to focus my energy and streamline into solving problems, I will asphyxiate if I suck in every kind of problem that exists, any burst, anything that is happening. I will prefer, in terms of decision, design, anticipatory design, to kind of use my energy in a way, my capital, in certain way. And that's what I'm looking for in the condition in which we are living today. What is the best?
What we're looking for is, in my view, the superiority of what we think our design is. And we say, there's this going on for my design, the Homo sapien, and we disregard the design of the biosphere. And we say, well, that's nothing to do with me. Yet we affect biosphere. Joe, you wanting to say something? Go for it.
I have a quick question. It's more about the idea of how subconsciously established confidence in the computer's reliability upon vital, therefore undeniable behavioral facts. That doesn't seem, so if behaviors are preconditioned, then what kind of I mean, what does that say essentially about what we're relying on? If that makes sense. The question, maybe I should be a little bit more clear.
Well, did computers bring emotions in?
No, we do.
So like a computer is fed its sensorial information. We gather sensorial information and we interpret it. Now, what are computers, now the new supercomputers, what are they bringing in?
They bring in modeling and projections.
Yeah, but they're bringing it in from sensorial pads. That's the Internet of Things. So when you look at it, now computers have got senses.
Yep.
And they're refining senses. But who's programming for that?
Well, that raises the whole question of transhumanism and AI. Because there's people on this planet who want to put their consciousness into a robot.
So they live forever.
And there's those of us who want to remain human. And there's a metaphysics in that most people haven't considered. In every ancient culture and every metaphysical tradition, there's cycles of initiation, that you go through an initiation so that you're ready and able to go through the next stage. And that works in our world with apprentices. You go through a cycle so that you're ready to be a master of the trade yourself or a professional yourself. The AI culture is to deny initiation processes that you can just transform without effort or without involving the metaphysics. And personally, I think that's arrogant.
So what do you think our function? That's Fuller's ultimate question. What's our function?
Well, our function for me is a spiritual path in who I choose to be. Do I choose to be, read the earlier discussion, a slave to someone else telling me what I can think or do, or do I choose to be free? Do I choose to be conditioned into hate, or do I choose to come into love? Do I choose to be prosperous, though the world would condition me to scarcity? You know, all of those questions and many more are the spiritual choice of who we choose to be.
But you're talking about a Homo sapien right now.
Absolutely.
What about a part of the consciousness?
I think our consciousness is connected to everything's consciousness. The consciousness of the earth, the consciousness of animals, the consciousness of plants.
But you define Homo sapien consciousness pretty well.
Thank you.
But what about consciousness? What about understanding? You know, there's, as Manu said, 7 or 8 billion of us. Are there too many of us? And one of Fuller's things was that we are here to develop planet to be a star. and then
Yeah.
start the cycle again.
I have something to say about whether there are too many of us. Yeah, I think the world on its own will decide how many is too many. You know, because we can control whatever we can and grow the numbers. You know, you talk about because of the what's that? Was it Karl Marx who says that you know that there's scarcity and therefore the world will not support more than 6 billion people, and now we're up to almost 8 billion. And I think the world will decide. It will just decide what is too many, and when there are too many of us, it will just adjust itself and bring it down to a level, to a number where it can sustain us. If not, then we will just disappear and it'll sustain itself. So I don't think we really need to think about what the actual number is. We just carry on, and when it happens, it'll come to that point where it'll just stop us, you know.
Okay, so we appear not to be conscious when we start to see that the waterways of the world are now being made by bitumen. And when they go into cities now, they don't have to follow the natural contours. They can follow the roads and the highways, and they can knock things out. You know, how do we allow for all of that as part of where we're going? You see, we've affected the environment. So you say, how do we as 7 billion people, how do we evolve? How do we get through all of this?
That also raises the point of, you know, scarcity and abundance and eugenics and separation from nature and unity with nature. The Bill Gates of the world and all of the people who choose to follow him, you know, believe that we can control everything and cut the population down. And those of us of a different view say, well, it's an abundant world. We've already got enough food. I can't remember the name of the study, but it was done in the 70s when technology isn't as good as it is today. They proved then that the population of the world could be 100 times what it was, and there'd still be waste of food because there's too much produced. And the technology in the last 50 years has gotten dramatically better. So it comes to an attitude of, do we want to be human or do we want to be an android? And I think that choice, those who want to become androids, if that's your choice, go for it. But don't try and force that choice on others.
Besides, the beauty of being human, as much as perhaps we like to debate, is our emotions, our right to choose, and even more to learn from an experience that we go through, emotions or not. That's what it means human. You know, to feel, to express, to learn, to go through something, to experience, to decide left or right, front, backwards, feel up and down, sadness, joy,
In, out, and in between.
and everything. And that's what it actually means, a human. If I'm sorry for using human, but that's what actually makes us who we are. Is emotions. We can't pretend to be as pragmatic as we want to be. What makes us who we are is emotions. With our ability to love, to our ability to be empathic, our ability to connect with other like us or animals in nature. And
so you've got all of that going for you, but
yeah.
Bill Gates, to make Bill Gates wrong, it's like he's got a point of view. He's
allowed to have a point of view, and nothing
He's just
wrong
not
with
allowed to
that.
enforce it on others.
He should not. He doesn't have. He doesn't have the right, as Bucky said it himself, is his own experience. He doesn't have the right to decide when he ends his life. He doesn't have the right to decide for everyone else's life. The governments are not allowed to decide when I am actually gonna move or see my family on the other side of the world. They should not have that right.
Okay, and again, that's exactly what's going on from a design perspective. You have to have those points of view if you're going to evolve. And so rather than saying, well, there's that, what do we do to take the point of view, the empathic point of view that you're talking about. What do we do? See, attacking Bill Gates ain't going to do anything.
No, that's what we don't. I don't do that.
We have to
Try
do
to find something that is constructive for my own life, and
we
for
have
my
to
own life,
evolve.
if I choose not to do something or have the lifestyle I choose, that's my life. I don't have anything. I don't see any point, Kelly, on blaming someone else for my lack of my life when I am the responsible for it. But I also do not allow someone else to take over my life.
It doesn't sound like you will, but again, to me, if we intend to change something, we have to look at the design of something and accept there is a design.
Absolutely.
And there is a critical mass design. And I would say to you right now that the vaxxers are winning over the anti-vaxxers because the critical mass worldwide.
Well, the stats don't actually back that up though, Kelly. With all of the things that's going on in Australia at the moment, there's only 42% of the population being vaccinated in Queensland. I apologise.
Yeah,
So,
and they're heading towards critical mass.
Well,
so we can debate it on this call.
There's another critical mass for those who don't want to have it.
No, Peter, it's the wrong place to debate the matter. We're debating design, and when we talk about design, it doesn't really matter. It's like the critical mass. Where's the critical mass heading? And if you want to change that, you've got to realize that it will turn. It'll eventually turn in a different direction. If anyone who studied the stuff that's going on in England with Brexit, you could see until it hit critical mass, there's nothing they could do. Now they're starting to do something and the worm is turning the other way. So when you start to look at this thing, we have to understand from a design perspective exactly what's going on. And there's some things that you can say, okay, we're going to do this. To me, whether you get a vaccination or not is your choice. But the critical mass and the fear that's being led right now is vaccinations may be the way out of it. And that's, I think that's happening. Joe, you wanted to say something?
Just really quickly, I mean, could you look at the financial system as critical mass, like essentially how the dollar is,
Absolutely. That is all about critical mass. And if you don't understand what's going on there is hyperinflation globally.
Right.
Because when you look at it and you think the house that I live in, I bought for $270,000. It's now been valued at about $1.3 million.
Wow.
In less than 15 years.
Probably more now, Kelly. Probably more. In New Zealand, $1 million just buys you a basic 3-bedroom home.
Yeah, and like when you start to think about that, the only reason why houses are increasing is they need volume. We are being consumed by volume, critical mass volumes. And when you start to look at the stock market, it's exactly what's going on. And who's feeding it? The IMF and everyone else. We can carry on about it all we want, but eventually it's going to get to a point where it's going to evolve into something else. That's why you're now starting to see people being paid to stay at home. This is just the start of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be critical mass.
It's a UBI in training.
Yes, it's UBI. That's my belief too.
Yeah, this is just a test.
And see how far you can stretch the conditioning.
Yeah, there'll be another test, another tweak, and we've got 2 decades to live into it. That's what it is. That's the business.
Anyway, I want to keep moving along. Let's talk about reliability and let's go down to Wikipedia.
Sure. Reliability, operative and subconsciously sustaining, effectively available 24 hours a day. Anywhere in the universe, gravity, love, Buller, R. Buckminster critical path. The idea of the subconscious as a powerful or potent agency has allowed the term to become prominent in the New Age and self-help literature in which investigating or controlling its supposed knowledge or power is seen as advantageous. In the New Age community, techniques such as autosuggestion and affirmations are believed to harness the power of the subconscious to influence a person's life and real-world outcomes, even curing sickness. Wikipedia.
Okay, comments or questions?
Sorry, I was getting feedback if I was a little off.
Yeah, and that's okay. I'm sure people went along with you. Comments or questions?
Agree with everything on that. Absolutely. I love what it says there as well. Its supposed knowledge or power is seen advantageous. Yes, it is, if practiced, if tuned into. I remember I was always a reader, but I hung out with some pretty ugly people back in the day as well. But I still remember the first book I was given in my early 20s, and I was reading mafia books back then, spy books, war books, crime books. I loved all that stuff. And someone gave me, my wife back then, girlfriend, gave me the Celestine Prophecy. And I read it. I go, what's this shit? Right? It was the ego. I was like, what's this rubbish? Right? But I actually loved it. So then, and I used to read, geez, a lot of books. I'd go into the bookshop, secondhand bookshop, and I was that embarrassed, back then it was called self-help, that if somebody else walked in the store, I would turn around and face the other genre, because I didn't want people to know I was reading that shit, is what I would call it back then. And I still mixed it in with the other books, the crime books, all this kind of stuff. But does it give you knowledge? Well, it gives you information, which you apply to gain knowledge, but then has it made me somewhat advantageous with the way I see things? Yes, because in those books, in that literature, it doesn't talk about fear. It talks the opposite of fear. And it talks about abundance. It talks about power and strategies to get through fear and connection. So when you integrate that into your life, yes, it becomes advantageous rather than all the shit on the news.
Okay, so when you look at it from that perspective, because we're still talking about design here.
Mm-hmm.
And when we start talking about autosuggestions and affirmations, like in the 70s, like you're talking to a redneck Albertan here. And I don't think people quite appreciate what a redneck Albertan is. We're richer than the Texans, right? And we got the ranches too, and we got the cows, and we got the oil, and we got the money. And so, I was brought up on all of that stuff. And when you start to realize that this new age stuff, and from my vocabulary, it would be new age shit. It would be self-help shit. And the thing is, as we've gone further into it, now we get into the 2000s, the 2010s, the 2020, it's no longer considered shit. It's no longer considered new age. It's considered mainstream. And the thing that's starting to make it considering mainstream is that we're evolving as a thought. And it just like Anne was saying, she was saying earlier that, we could feed all of these people. We got the ability to feed all the people. I agree that we've got the ability to feed all of the people, but we have these other things that are going on, which is other species and other things that are going on. And will we be conscious of that? Or are we just taking a position of a Homo sapien? And so as we start to look at this thing, we're starting to change.
Sorry, Kelly.
Go ahead. No, I'm always willing to stop.
Okay, I have something to add to this. I think this is about bringing the metaphysical together with the physical world, right? So we're talking about this new age. We're talking about, there is this assumption that when we talk about being able to sustain ourselves, and we are thinking about, just the human beings, right? But I personally feel it's about being able to do all, right? It's about doing for human beings and also for the biosphere, for the other animals around us. We just need to find a solution to it, that's all. And more of us to come together to come to that conclusion rather than thinking it's one or the other. The other thing is this. I'm not sure if this has been discussed, but to understand the metaphysical, and just now earlier on, you're talking about, you have the experience and bringing all these things together. Now there is a science that we found out from a neuroscientist friend that we have 3 brains, and 2 of those brains will explain the metaphysical that we have until this point where, the science in school does not explain. So right now, the universities are now looking at the other 2 brains as well. So we have the brain, which is up here, and then there is the brain here where our heart is. And there is another brain, it's called cardiac brain. And the third one is the enteric brain. And each of these brains, they have their own system of brain cells, like the neural system, right? And they're separate from each other and they talk to one another. So, every time we talk about the subconscious, like our gut feel, and yes, there is a brain that's just here at our gut that actually starts a lot of our responses around, in our body, and it links up to the brain through the I think the reptilian part of the brain, and for us to decide whether to do the fight or flight, right? But there are 3 brains, and now they're looking a lot of the science behind. It's like if you take care of our gut health, not gut health, we take care of the enteric brain. It now impacts. It's the other way around. Instead of looking at like mental health issues as it being the root cause is in the brain, they're looking at it as from the enteric brain. So you take care of this. They are relooking at how even Alzheimer's and all that are caused by taking care of here, and it impacts the rest of the,
So would you
body.
say that the function of the brain in those 3 different places is the same in that it stores information?
I think it's gone beyond, especially the gut. Yeah. And I think it's linking the metaphysical. So it's just that I don't think we have got
it stores it. And now what you're doing is relating it. And from a design perspective, that's really what we're talking about from a design perspective, to say, okay, so now we've discovered we have 3 brains. Is the function of the brain, those 3 brains, does it remain the same? Does it store information? And does it almost goes to automation of our subconscious?
Yes, it hasn't invalidated that the brain stores. Just that we didn't know all the brains.
Yes.
So the label is evolving. Remember, the brain is a label that we agree to give it. It is evolving.
Or our understanding of what it is evolving.
Yeah,
And
better
so as
definition.
we become more aware. So, I mean, I think those are good points that must be studied in terms of what is the function. And when we understand the function, can we go to design? And that's exactly what's going on with the information you provided. So people are saying, let's look at the gut and how the gut stores the information to make the decisions subconsciously. Now, are you now making it conscious?
Yeah. Well, Bruce Lipton talked about in his book, Biology and Belief, about the mind and creating its space, its environment, and being able to, even though you may have a specific gene which is hereditary, it could be cancerous. If you focused on it, then it may become malignant. But if you didn't, like you say, if you didn't give it the air, then perhaps you could cure your sickness.
Anyway, and again, I don't disagree with anything that's been said on this call. What I'm saying is, if we're going to understand it, we have to look at a design, and the design comes from our body. And it's like, I believe that entirely. The fact that I don't know, the fact that you bring up that we have 3 brains just tells me we're evolving. So anyway, I don't know who's causing my echo. Lisa, who's causing my echo? All right. Well, anyway, we managed to get through one word today. But I think it's probably a very important word. And you can see just exactly what happens with people and words. And I think it's really very important that we understand those, because we do want to create an artifact of design. And I think we have to know exactly the things that are required. Critical mass is a requirement for us to change something. It's about getting critical mass. It's not about so much worrying about who's doing what else. It's more concerned about what are we doing to create that critical mass. So with that, Lisa, how do you feel? What do you take away?
Oh, caught me on the hop. Thanks for that, Kelly. I feel good. And I think what I take away from this call today is when we get involved in things, our emotions come up. That's pretty much it. Philemon, how do you feel? What did you take away from this call?
Well, Julian, do you want to go because you said you have to leave soon?
Thank you, Philemon. Yeah, it will be okay. So, how do I feel? I am surprised from one side, because I think that having to discover about evolution and how conditioning and how our subconscious can help us drive in this environment. So I'm surprised all of these kind of things can come together and help us to do things a little bit different. So yeah, that's what I wanted to take away from this. So please, Philemon, how do you feel today, and what do you take from this call?
Thank you, Julian. I'm feeling content. I didn't want to talk too much in this one because I love this area. I probably spend most of my time, my days in these conversations, and 2 hours is just, yeah, it's not even foreplay for this conversation. So it was nice just to be an observer and a listener and joining the dots as I like to do. The design principles will truly give you the light. Okay. Yeah, evolving is a generalized principle. I like that, Kelly. But I find, yes, it is. And us humans disinfect it with sunscreen, with gloves, with sanitizers. We're organic beings, and we seem to artificially smother ourselves with shit rather than learning to be with it. You know, like the Arabs in the desert, they cover themselves up. They don't travel in the midday sun. My daughter is darker than me. She's like between like me and a Manu. And at school, if the sun's out, in winter, they'll put sunscreen on and I smell it. And I get the shits with them. I tell her, well, what are you doing? She's not an albino, bloody Anglo-Saxon kid. She's dark in winter. We need sun. It's life. It gives us food. It gives us the sunlight. And we smother ourselves with shit to repel life. Like humans are really weird. I've started potting up my plants here, like I said. And on the bag, I read the bag, and I've read this since a little boy. Make sure you wear mask and gloves. I've been doing gardening because I grow my own food and all this kind of stuff my whole life. I was just eating an orange before and I hadn't even washed my hair. That's been my life growing up. I don't get sick. I don't get sick because of that. It's just I don't get sick because I don't have time to get sick. But I have had my hands in dirt my whole life, growing and playing with it, playing with my dogs, crashing out with my dogs, being drunk and sharing a bloody hamburger with my dogs. It's just we have everything there for us, but we just artificially, we stuff ourselves up by stopping evolution really for ourselves. Lastly, the thing around thoughts that I love, in all of the noise that's out there, in all of the pollution that's out there, there's 3 things we really have control of in life, the way I look at it, just these 3. It's the thoughts we think, the images we create, and the actions we take. Like if we can work on them in the moment, that's what we've got control of. There's a lot of noise around it, but just those things, the thoughts, the images, and the actions. Thank you. Great conversation. And I shall now pass it off to CJ. How do you feel, mate? And what did you get out of today?
Thank you, Philemon. It's so wonderful to hear your story. It feels great to have this conversation today. And on the other tangent, I'm so confused along the way that there are a lot more questions surface among the questions being brought up, including like, hey, conscious awareness, there are seven thoughts that we can hold, plus minus 2. Why? How come? A lot more questions just bubble up as it goes about. So I guess in time that will sink in. So I love the confusion because that gives me things to look into, because that's where learning happens. And the next one is design. It got me thinking a lot about how I've designed my life and how people around me have lived their life in either by default or by design of their choice. And as we go down the path of vaccination, the whole new story, just even more questions pop up that, hey, yeah, right. So why I chose to get the jab, because I follow the critical mass, because I don't want fear sink in. I want to live my life. I don't want to, I'm okay to give up a bit of control in order to be able to continue on with what I'm doing. So that's a choice. And yeah, so feeling good. And sinking in.
CJ, if you want to know more about 7 plus or minus 2, there's a study. Right. There's a study in the, I think it's the 50s or 60s, with either Yale or Harvard. If you search it, you'll find it, and there's a whole piece done on it.
All right, thank you, Kelly.
Okay,
we'll do that. So yeah, so and also the last one is about conditioning. So how conditioning happened to me and how I condition my kids, and got to be mindful about that as well. All right, so I'm going to pass it on to Henry. So Henry, how do you feel and what's your takeaway?
Thank you, CJ. Feeling well, feeling good. It was good discussions. The key I got out of today was evolving is a generalized principle. And if you look at Bucky and Critical Path, he talks about involuting, evoluting orbital feedback systems. So evolution is very much a part of the process. And yeah, I mean, there were a lot of bushfires that came out today, which led us down different rabbit holes. And that's always going to happen. But you got to look at the design. So an example like that would be rat poison. If you have rat poison, you put it out, it could probably kill about 99% of the rats. But there is one rat, the super rat, that actually can start evolving from that. And he starts eating it. And Australia knows that. I mean, they've got bugs from all over and they survive, super ants and things. And they create another species in itself. The point is, are we willing to go through that evolution process as a people, as a population, world population? And generally the consensus at the moment is no, they don't want that many people to die off. They don't want to go through that evolution pain. Those are the choices. We look at design and Critical Path. Bucky talks about human population and people, and he says, as societies evolve, as communities evolve, actually the number of births reduces, population decline, and that's what's happened in Japan and affluent societies. So if the world evolved to the point where there was plentiful for everybody, you'd actually find that you're not going to have so many people to support. It will naturally find its own way. So so definitely evolution is a part of that. The subconscious is a part of the mind, and it is very powerful. So yeah, really enjoyed the call, got lots out of it. So thank you very much for that. Joe, how are you feeling? What'd you get out of today?
I'm feeling great. I always enjoy being here with everyone. It's always great to see everyone. It's a highlight my week. So like you, Henry, actually, I had the same takeaway, is that evolution is a generalized principle. and then how condition and adaptability are a duality as well, and how they start to form patterns. But the other part about it, those are my two main takeaways. But the other important part about is critical mass and how it applies to different aspects of our lives. I would have maybe liked to have applied it to the automation part of the reading, but I think that that's also an interesting aspect of it, but also how it applies to financial systems, and how we think about critical mass with things like cryptocurrency would have been cool. But that I'm seeing critical mass and where it applies at different parts of our lives. And I can start to actually think about that in design terms. And so that will be my week that I'm gonna actually, I really hope, I got a Barron's and an economist downstairs that I really hope I get time to read on cryptocurrencies. And I want to see if I can apply the critical mass concept to those ideas. And I had a couple of other takeaways, but some of like, well, brain storage and the mind, how they relate and interrelate, but I have those from my notes before. Hopefully I find my Bucky book as well. So Catalina, how do you feel, and what did you take away from today?
Thanks, Joe. I feel good. It was a rich conversation. Well, emotions comes up because that's who I am. You know, we're part of being human beings or Homo sapiens. Yeah, emotions makes us rich. It doesn't mean that it's the best place to make decisions. My takeaway is I agree. Where we focus our energy is whatever grows. So focus on what we want to create, contribute to the creation of a new earth. The key point is focusing on that without surrender towards the critical mass of fear. So that's kind of what I think that is my rich point today. And yeah, you know, just to be me, just to be you and be happy, regardless of what everyone else wants to choose for you. They don't pay your rent or your mortgage. But how do you feel? What you take away?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. I like rich conversations with contrasting points of view. I'm kind of wrestling with my takeaway at the moment is critical mass, but specifically in connection to consciousness, because I'm not the first to observe this. We are very technologically advanced, but we are rather primitive in consciousness. And a simple example of that is we allow the level of pollution, we allow children to starve, we allow innocents to be killed for stupid reasons. And we're the only species that allow the dumbest of us to lead us. So I'm wrestling with the point of how do we create momentum towards a consciousness that actually serves humanity to not just evolve, but function at a high level, where in really simple terms, you know, we've done away with war, we've done away with starvation, we've done away with a whole lot of other crap. And, you know, the way that will come is momentum. And I'm philosophical enough to believe that, you know, we've faced this issue back in Atlantis, and I think we've got to face it again now. And it's an initiation process for our spirits, is how do we become loving in a world that's set up to program us not to be? So that's where I want to apply momentum to today. Manu, how do you feel, and what was your takeaway, mate?
I feel like talking and provocative. I really feel that, you know, this discussion here went to some depth and width. It was really rich, and it touched things that sometimes we're not even aware of, but that are very important. What I take away is the ability to choose, decide as part of design. Second, critical mass is linked and inherently linked to the idea of boundary. 3, 7 plus or minus 2 is kind of connotate with the importance of locality and the channeling of energy focus. To me, is an obligation. We really need to, I wouldn't say anchor, but to try to see and to work on the local, knowing the generalized, knowing the macro, really solve those problems that will manifest anyway. Another thing that I put in there is that evolving. When we talk about evolving, there is a connotation of always like expanding or going away one direction. No, evolving is, if we want to look at it as a general principle, it is a duality of X and in. I put it as exvolving and involving. I made the analogy of the hedgehog and the fox. It comes from some guy, you know, a guy here. It was coined by Clem Sonter, who is South African and a futurist, and say, I would say general principles are hedgehog. They will happen, and they will happen in their way always. We, as local problem solvers, got to be foxes. The fox knows its environment. The fox knows ways in, out. The fox knows its boundary. The fox is educated, and the fox takes educated decisions and live by them. And really critical mass is, we're not aware of it. If we don't take into account in the design, it will manifest in a black swan. So that's what, and a promise is, I have an appointment with Henry on 9/25, right? We see then on 9/25. Lisa, how do you
go
feel?
the All Blacks. You're on, baby.
I've been, who had something?
Yes, Lisa, how do you feel? What do you take away?
Yeah, I've been. Is there anyone? Sorry, who?
Susan.
Susan, how do you feel? What was your takeaway today?
I feel great, and I kind of want to provoke Manu a little bit. I love it that we've decided that evolving is a generalized principle, and I'm finding it to be potentially a duality with entropy. The other thing that you know, as I listen to you, Catalina, and your passion, and I bastardize a lot of things by the time I've ended up spending time listening to Bucky, but I think what I've gotten by the end of Critical Path was that pushing against doesn't really work. I think that Bucky tried to talk to us about the idea that if we really wanted to change something in the consciousness of humanity, as he said it, that we would design an alternative that is easier, more elegant, and just, and it was, so it wasn't a pushing against, it was finding a way around so that the energy would flow to the line of least resistance. And so I find myself very challenged in these situations where I don't like the conditioning and I don't like having my freedom to choose be challenged. And so I do love that this group is looking at how do we design something better. Nelson, how do you feel and what do you take away?
Thank you, Susan. I'm feeling great. I'm feeling happy because I am understanding more this more about this information. Thank you all. Thank you all. And I take away the relations, the relations between subconscious mind and conscious mind, for to take decisions and make a choice. Thank you. Then I feel, and that is my takeaway. Thank you. And Stanley, what do you feel and what do you take away?
Thank you, Nelson. I'm feeling great, actually. I'm very glad and happy that I'm a part of this conversation, because it's that one time of the week where, you know, we go into a very thought-provoking conversation, and, you know, that's when the mind starts working, especially in the background or the foreground. And now, what I get away from it is that when I look at critical mass and design, I try to zoom out and look at it from a bigger picture, right? Like in the history of mankind, civilizations has rise and fall for many reasons. And I think that the conditioning here is mass, critical mass. I think critical mass is the condition required to make or break something. It is neutral. And from the macro to the micro, I look at it, it's all about critical mass for something to evolve, to change, to grow. Whether a civilization grow or a civilization falls, it's critical mass. And I try to look at it from a practical level, from our perspective, from, you know, what can we do as an individual? And I look at the daily grind that we do, you know, whatever that we want to pick up, whatever we are grinding to build. And we just keep grinding day after day. The little bit just grows and grows to the point it reaches critical mass, and then it becomes something else. Or we do something destructive, a little bit until it becomes critical mass, and then it's harmful for us, like cancer. So yeah, so that's my take for today. Thank you. Who hasn't gone yet?
Raffers, I think.
Raffers, how do you feel and what do you take away from today?
Thank you, Stanley. And I feel guys are great call. I always enjoy, having so many different points of views and how the discussion expands and gets into all kinds of rabbit holes and the great things that come out of those rabbit holes as well. And my takeaway today is, again, the importance of understanding design. And the fact that we can understand universe design by understanding this design, these Homo sapiens design, and how by understanding the design, we can actually make much better choices and much more informed decisions. And again, I love the contrast when we started the call talking about, submarines and the whole thing is so ludicrous and stupid. But still, most people will accept the argument of it's much better to get, nuclear submarines from the US than getting them from France, and we're going to do great things and protect this wonderful country, Australia. It's ridiculous. In today's world, but again, that shows the power, again, of critical mass. 80–90% of the population accepting that's normal, acceptable, and he's basically talking about weaponry rather than livenry. And I've never been able to understand the military. To me, it's absolute waste of space, quite frankly. To think that you need to defend yourself from, external and internal enemies. So what? There are many ways to deal with those problems anyway, rather than the military anyway. Again, the importance as well of, as we become conscious about universe or aware, because universe is conscious, and we become aware of the universe being conscious, and how important it is to understand conditioning. because if we are to manage 5 plus 2 or minus 2, it all happens at the level of the subconscious. So if we become aware of the conditioning, then we can decide, like somebody said earlier, what we, for example, condition our children to do or behave, rather than, the blind, let's repeat what's been done before, and because that's a critical mass. And a small group of individuals, like in this group, with different ideas and different concerns about what happened to our species and the biosphere, we can make much more informed choices. But we seem to be aware of the conditioning and critical mass, because that's what needs to change in today's world. I mean, move away from the concept of, for example, we need politicians to run the countries and make important decisions. And somebody said earlier today, I think it was Peter, we choose the dumbest to lead us. And people follow the dumbest, which is again crazy. It doesn't happen in any other species. So again, great call, and those are my takeaways. So Anne, you've gone, have you?
Yeah, no, Anne's next.
Anne is next. That's what I thought. So Anne, how do you feel, and what's your takeaway?
Yeah, thank you very much, Raffers. Yeah, I've got something to add here. Yeah, actually, I feel very challenged today because one of the things that came about is, how in there is this emoji that shows the face palm thingy. Because I've been spending the past couple of weeks going through Criminal Minds, binge watching the 15 seasons that I've never been able to catch regularly, right? And the most enjoyment my husband and myself get out of it is we've been yelling at all the potential victims. Why can't you see this? What's going? How can you be so stupid, right? And well, Kelly, you just gave us the right, gave us the that realization that you're talking about the subconscious and the conscious mind, right? And in order for us to feel the weather and to be able to predict it, like and without having to depend on information or data from the computers or to be fed with data, right? And it just occurred to me that we've been conditioned to live in very safe spaces and that to be nice to people, and so we don't know and don't think the way people who are out to harm us think, right? So like for instance, you see this car chasing someone along a country road, right? And the person just runs right down the road instead of jumping off to the side, and things like that. So it's like, ay. But it really makes me aware now that we really have to train, our people to not just to condition and to get them be aware of not just the what we think life should be, but what could happen so we can react, so that's my takeaway. Thank you very much, everybody. Yeah. Has Susan gone or?
Yeah,
it's Kelly now.
Okay, so Kelly, how do you feel and what is your takeaway today?
I feel quite concerned when we talk about conscious and subconscious. And I think we can be so taken aback by this argument about COVID. And all our eyes are on this thing, and it's global and so all the rest of it. And then we can look at this conscious design of roads. And I still have going on in my mind, because I'm a farmer, and I actually did move water over kilometers with windmills, understanding the principles of doing that. And when I look at, like, I spent the early parts of my life traveling around Europe in the small villages, and France and Germany and Holland, and it was like a wonderful world. I felt like Don Quixote. And you could tilt at the windmills. And now when I look at it, I still have this image in my mind about the towns in Germany that were flooded. And we talk about all the floods and climate change and all the rest of it. We don't need climate change for that damage. What we need to understand is the contours. and the way we make those contours. You know, the water gathers momentum because it has the right surfaces to amass. And so when we start to look at it, we start to look at the erosion, we start to look at all the things that are going on, and we kind of ignore those as, oh, that's just a natural, that's a 100-year natural disaster. That's a load of crap. It's nature doing what nature does on a daily basis. It goes to the least line of resistance. And we've built a lot of our stuff for, you know, the highways for us to flow. And if you have a look at where a lot of the flooding's going, a lot of the flooding is where there's highways and where there's these man-made or being made or Homo sapien made is probably the more correct way of saying it, structures that haven't allowed for understanding design. We have to start to understand design and our own design and how it fits in to the consciousness of the planet. And I take that there is a consciousness, and I take that, you know, when you look at soil and you deplete your soil and you start to do things so that we can feed ourselves and so we can protect and increase our life expectancies without understanding it's going to happen anyway through evolution, through the stuff that we do and through the understanding of it. But when we do so many stupid things, I mean, I just cannot think of anything more stupid than having 6 submarines floating around the ocean with men down the bottom spying on somebody to see what the hell's going on, knowing full well all that really has to happen is a good rainstorm and we'll flood half the world. You know, it's and there's nothing we can do about that. So why are we spending so much time worrying about what the neighbor next door is doing rather than enhancing our proposition, enhancing who we are, and knowing that it will get to an equilibrium. I mean, that's nature. Nature seeks to do that. And if we look at that and say to ourselves, okay, you know, it's going to do this, but somehow we got to understand that. Yeah, nuclear reactors boated to their backsides. Yeah, it amazes me. 33% of all the military equipment on this planet is produced in the United States. 180 countries and 33% of the military wear comes from one. Our economy is built on one. It's built on pollution, not design. And I think that that's what we have to really get over. I get it. I mean, the last thing I want is vaccine needles in my arm, but that is not my fight. My fight is to understand how do we educate the mass to be educated to understand qualities of life. And I think that's the most important thing we do is increase the quality of life for everybody, not, you know, not just Homo sapiens, everyone in the conscious beingness. So I leave you with that. I take it very seriously, this idea that we've got to get into design. So thank you, and next week.
You landed the plane on time, Kelly.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah, I'm getting better.
See you later,
Perfect.
fellas.